Hi everyone. Today I'm going to paint a greeting card with you. I will show you what it looks like. This is a previous one that I made. This bloom bright yellow vibrant card with a lot of different flowers, and I'm going to show you how to do it today. So let's get started, shall we? So the first thing we're going to do is obviously to put our lettering in the middle of the card. So I'm just using an ink pad here. I can put all the information in the description box, but I really like this ink. It's just black ink. And I've already loaded my little letters here. So I'm just gonna tap, tap, tap into my ink, make sure it's nice and loaded, make sure my letters are in the right order, which they are in the right direction too. And then I'm just gonna go towards the top here and kind of press evenly throughout. And there we go. So as you can see here, and that does happen sometimes. So you know what, instead of doing another card, I will show you how I fix it. If you take a look here, the bloom, the M, is not perfectly, I probably didn't press quite hard enough on that side, but it's a really easy fix. So see, I have my pen here. There we go, just fix that. No need to do it again, and certainly don't put your ink in and try to go in and do that a second time over top, because you'll never get it right on top of that first one, and it will not work. So then I'm gonna go ahead, I'm using this Van Gogh Royal Talens paintbrush in a size 4, and I quite like it because it has a really good kind of pointy edge here, and it makes it really easy to paint my flowers. So that's what I'm going to use, at least for the petals, and then I'll see for the rest. I'm going to put my little card here. Okay, here, let's go. And I'm using this Gogh palette. I quite like it. I'll put the description for everything down below, but there's a lot of colors that I really like in here, and I'm going to start with yellow. So I've already kind of mixed some of it, but I'll do it maybe a little bit more, and I'm using kind of a mix of this yellow here and a bit of this brighter yellow too. So I'm just kind of mixing those two together, making sure I have enough color, and I'm going for kind of a punchy vibrant yellow for this. So I think this should be good, at least to get me started. Okay, and now I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to start doing some of my petal shapes. I'm going to start with one here, and I'm going to do that point right at the bottom and then press and kind of release. There you go, that's the first petal there. And then I'm going to do a second petal here, load a bit more color onto my brush, and then do another petal. I'm going to do about, I think, 4 or 5 petals per flower. Make some of them a little bit bigger, some of them a little bit smaller. And there we go. Make sure they all kind of meet at the top here. So let's go again. There we go. You can take your time with these. Once you get used to it, you can actually kind of do them fairly quickly. But if you're starting out and you want to make sure you get the shape right, just take your time. And I like to use the point, as I said, the point of my brush to just make that pointy kind of tapered edge, and then I go kind of around to shape them. And if there's a few that you don't think you like the shape of, you can always kind of go back in and arrange the shape a little bit. So let's see, I think I'm going to do one, maybe, let's see, this direction here, kind of going this way. So you want to make sure that all of your flowers are pointing kind of in different directions. Otherwise, you run the risk of it looking kind of stale when you're done. And you want some petals to be a little bit darker in tone, and then some to be a bit lighter. I find that that's really where you get kind of the best effect. Take your time with these. I think it's actually quite relaxing to make these flowers. They're cone flowers, I believe, and actually where I live, which is Toronto in Canada, I find that there's a lot of them at this time of year, which makes my kind of daily walks fun because I like spotting these. I think there's something kind of marvelous about these little petals that all kind of poke downwards. I think they always look really neat. So let's see here. Oh, and I should say I have taped down my paper. I'm using a 4x6 kind of 100% watercolor paper, and I have taped it down I will show you using, let's see, where is it? I have some tape that I can't seem to locate. Aha, I am back. Here's the tape. It's a washi tape and it's the perfect width, obviously to tape your paper down so it's easier to paint, but it's also the perfect width to kind of create a border around your card. And you'll see when everything's sort of dry at the end and we take that paper off, it will create that kind of professional looking border that makes everything kind of come together. So there is a double kind of use to using the tape. It takes a couple seconds to get it secured to your paper when you first start, but it is worth it. So here we go, make another one of these here. Maybe, let's see, one going in this direction up at the top. So you want to make sure that you obviously leave the lettering visible. I've written Bloom, the brand here, as you know, my brand is Khaki and Bloom. So there's a lot of mentions of bloom, both in writing and in sort of choices of what to paint, because that's sort of what I'm drawn to. But you could write whatever you would like on top using stamps or using, you know, your handwriting, whatever you'd prefer. So you want to make sure that you can still see that lettering, but it is nice to have some of your composition purposely kind of interact close to the lettering as well. Otherwise it looks a little disjointed, I find. Maybe make this one a tiny bit bigger here. I think that's looking pretty good. I might add maybe one or two last flowers. I think I'm going to do one kind of here. If you want to make some of the flowers look like they're a little bit further in the distance, the easy way to do that is to just make them a little bit lighter in tone, and then that will make them feel like they're a little bit further. So I think that's pretty good for now. What I will do is I will change paintbrushes now, and I will show you. I'm going to use a small paintbrush. I'm going to go for this Winsor Newton #1 paintbrush. It's quite beat up, but that's a good sign. It means I use it a lot. And I'm going to create kind of dark sage stem for my flowers here. So I'm going to mix that up. Here, I'll show you what that looks like. I had some green left over on my palette, and I'm using the sage color right here from my koi palette, which, as you can see, is quite used because I like it a lot. It's a tone that I tend to use quite a bit in my paintings. And then I'm going to use some of this darker green that I already had in my palette here because I want it just a tad darker, and then load my brush up, and then I can start doing my stems. So to do my stems, I'm going to kind of pick the middle point of my flower, and I'm just going to create kind of a long stem into the center of each flower. And what I'm just going to try to make sure I do is to have some stems pointing in one direction and then some stems pointing in another direction, just so that the composition looks a bit more fun and a bit more balanced. Let me just do this here and imagine that this is kind of peeking through behind like that. And then let's see, this one we can make pointing this way here. Some of them are not perfectly curved. You see some of mine are not perfectly curved. That's perfectly okay. Don't concentrate on those too much, and you'll see once you start adding all of the details, you won't notice those at all. And actually, it shouldn't look perfectly curved, because in nature that would, oh, I forgot one here. In nature that would certainly not be the case. So you want to be kind of generous with yourself and let that happen when it does. So here I'm just going to add a couple of leaves with that same color, and I'm using the same brush. So I'm just going to kind of point my brush at the top, press down on that brush to create the leaf shape, and then curve kind of down. So let's do that again. I'm going to start here and point down like that. Let's make one here. So you can do it as you want. I usually tend to kind of make my flowers as they call to me. I don't necessarily go flower by flower, is what I mean. I might make a couple leaves in one or two of my flowers at the top, and then move on to another stem, and then take a look at the rest of my painting and see if I should be adding more or not. I'm going to make some of these a little bit darker and some of these a little bit lighter as I go through. And some of my leaves can be a little bit bigger, like this one I just made is quite big, and some of them can be a little bit smaller, and that kind of all plays in a kind of organic looking composition, I find. So let me see, do I think I should add another one? This one's a little tricky here, actually. Maybe I should connect this here. Let's see. I think there's a little piece of stem that should be connected here. There we go, that's better. And then I think, oh, this one's a bit tricky, to have a leaf sticking out just because it's peeking behind that other flower. Let's see, if I just do this, I don't mind that. I think I might just leave that there, and then just do one more here. And as with most things in life, it is easier to add in some leaves afterwards than it is to take them away. So if you think you might have put enough, it's probably best to stop and then take a step back. And if you want to add more later, you can always do that. But I think I'm pretty happy with how that's looking right now. Now with the same brush, I'm going to go in to this color here, which is kind of like a dark gray, black, dark gray, kind of black color. And I'm going to do the center of my flowers. And for cone flowers, if you've seen them in nature before, the top of the flower kind of looks like this. Tiny little dots, kind of a semicircle at the top of my flower here. And then I'm just going to kind of dab, and have it kind of be the center at the top where all of the petals kind of meet. And I think a good tip to make these is to not overthink it, because if you start trying to get those dots perfect, first of all, they're never going to look perfect, and nor should they, frankly. But also, if you start thinking about it too much, you're going to overthink where you put each dot, and it might start to look a bit contrived. But if you just think of it as every flower being its own entity, you'll find that it actually looks good if a lot of the centers are not the exact same. So some might be a little bit darker in color, some might have a little bit more dots, some might have a bit more what look like almost little lines, and that's okay. They can all look a little bit different, and I think that kind of brings the whole composition into what will hopefully by the end of it look like a cohesive whole. It's also a nice way to use the center to kind of shape your flower. If you feel like maybe some of the petals didn't have enough volume, you can make kind of a bigger center at the top. That will help your flower be a little bit bigger. Look a little bit bigger. So what do we think? I think I'm almost there. This one here, see, is a little bit not completely dry. So I think I'll let that one dry. And while I let it dry, I'm going to continue with the rest of the card. And we're almost done. This is actually very quick to make. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to dab a bit more paint in here. And I'm just going to make kind of little dot shapes around my card. And you can kind of imagine this as if maybe there was a little bit of a gust of wind and some of the centers of my flower decided to kind of jump ship, perhaps, and start flying off. That's kind of what it looks like. And I think what's nice about this is it kind of brings together a few different tones of black, and it brings together the black from the writing in the center of the card, but also those centers, and it makes the card kind of look cohesive, which I like. I think I don't want to overdo it either, so what do we think here? I think I'm just about there. I think that looks nice. And I think what I'll do, let's see, I think maybe this flower down here is maybe missing a leaf. Let's see. I'll add just a small leaf here, maybe even going over the petal. What do we think? And then I think, oh, let's see, yes, I did forget the center of that flower that was not completely dry a couple seconds ago, which I think is dry now. And see, this flower kind of goes to the very, very edge of my tape. And when I take the tape off, I think that will actually look really nice. It will give it that perfect kind of straight edge at the end. And I think that's it. Let's see. So normally you would definitely want to let this dry all the way, but I will not keep you waiting. And I'll just peel off my tape here. And you see how it gives you that perfect edge? It really helps you get that finessed kind of look. So I find for this kind of small format card, really makes a big difference to be using the tape. So here we go, last piece of tape here. I also like using the washi tape because it doesn't often tear the paper. It's a very gentle tape. And there we go. This is what the card looks like at the end. Now you can pop it into an envelope. I like to use these pretty sage envelopes here, and that's it. You got your pretty flowery, vibrant card. If you paint this along with me, please tag me at Khaki and Bloom. I would love to see what you come up with, and I'll say goodbye until next time.